Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English Champion. I'm glad you're here. I am, I think, in my third different location for my last three podcasts. So I've been transitioning, as it were, but I'm now in a much more comfortable space, and so we're ready to go. On the last video I made, I discussed how DEI and all of the other kind of social justice-y kinds of topics, how they're taking over college campuses, but really there's something deeper going on, and there's a much larger problem. It's a little more hidden. Maybe people don't realize it, but it's actually what is causing some of the outgrowth of DEI and the other, like I said, social justice type topics to overwhelm our college campuses. And it's starting to lead, among a variety of other reasons, to some of the collapse of some universities. And I think that's only going to continue to happen. What I want to show you today or talk about with you is a great example of what I mean when I said on my last episode, the overall standards for academic excellence and what we expect out of today's young people at the college level has declined so much. And I want to show you an example of how this is happening. This is an article that just came out this weekend. I thought I have to talk about this. Because it's just so representative of everything we're going through, because it takes the deterioration of standards that we've been seeing and it combines it with the other activism and kind of protest culture that's going on at universities right now. And they both come together in this one article, and I'm going to share it with you and highlight for you how all of this signals why no one is trusting universities anymore, or very few people are. And unless they get their act together, they're going to have big problems in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And I don't want that. I think college and that kind of environment is still a positive thing when it's done correctly. Schools aren't doing that. Maybe that bigger argument will be something I do on a future podcast. But I got a lot of good responses on the last one. And so I figured, let me dive a little more deeply into that so you get a clearer picture of what's happening. And I think you'll find this interesting. I'll read some of this. I'll read a lot of it, but I'll skip around some as well. So I won't read the whole thing for you. So it's basically about an article about how professors are dealing with grading. How do they assess their students when there is this strife on the college campuses? How do you hold class? How do you have exams when there are protests going on outside your window? And police are involved and people are getting arrested. How do you still give grades to students? That's the real question here. And I want you to hear what's going on at university campuses. So the article starts with this one lady who is a physics professor, and she was teaching her intro to astronomy class recently, and she says the class was confronted with the harsh realities of, you'd like to just come to class and focus on science and learn about life and humanity and what's out there and, the good stuff about education and trying to discover the unknown. And when the real world is going on outside your window, it's a little hard to do that. She said police were breaking up a pro-Palestinian encampment and arresting protesters, including students and 2 professors, in a scene that drew national attention for its aggression. As the campus community reeled, this professor tried to figure out what to do about the final exam her students were supposed to take the following week. Many students, she knew, were shaken, even those without a direct connection to the protests. She wondered, what should I be requiring of students in the midst of all this turmoil? Now, the first thing we have to think about is, where did this turmoil come from exactly? There's a big difference between turmoil that is completely out of your control and you have to just deal with. For example, a tornado swoops through town, flattens the campus, maybe people are killed or injured, and it's a disaster. Yeah, what do you do with those students? Well, yeah, you can't do what you normally did. You have to come up with a plan that is still fair, but also allows students to try to do their best to get back on the track they were on before this horrible tragedy of a natural disaster came through their town. That is very, very different than the turmoil that is going on college campuses, where these students choose, and the professors choose, to involve themselves in it. You do not have to be a part of this. If you want to be a part of it, that's certainly your choice. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the school has to accommodate you or that teachers have to accommodate you. That's what's going on here is this teacher and some of these universities are saying, well, what do we do to help these students? You don't need to do anything. You need to do what your job is, which is educate students. Those students came to school, supposedly, to get an education, to take a selection of courses, follow a schedule, be assessed, be mentored. They came to college. If they choose to not do those things anymore because they'd rather sleep outside in a tent or, break windows or scream at people or whatever they're doing, that's their choice, but they don't have to be doing that on the college campus. So this idea, we have a flawed presupposition here that teachers are supposed to do something about this. No, you don't. You can do your job. And if the students don't want to participate in what you are doing, well, then they're going to miss out. They can go do the other thing. But in our class, in our school, in this department, whatever it is, here's what we do. And that's it. That's how you solve this problem. But I'll show you how these couple professors solved it on their campuses. Those student demonstrations are spreading. They're only taking place on a fraction of campuses. Not all of those colleges' presidents called the police. Not all of the police have been aggressive, but sooner or later, many professors do face a situation in which the academic calendar collides with a crisis that can make sitting for or grading an exam feel insignificant in the vastness. Nope, that's just not true. Again, you chose to participate in this, so you can choose to not participate. It's very easy. Most professors underwent a similar experience as they cobbled together remote finals in the spring of 2020. At such times, instructors made trade-offs and tried to land on the least bad option. Well, as I've said on previous episodes, some of us didn't want to have to do that. And we found out, we made everything worse. Colleges made everything worse by having this catastrophic mindset and completely transitioning to online, and grades completely disappeared. And it was a mess. And now what are we doing every time there's something that disrupts our school? Now we're going back to it. And you'll see what a mess this becomes. The thing that frustrates me that these universities or individual professors are doing is their job, your job as a teacher, is not to bend to every stressful situation or crisis. Your job is to teach students how to deal with stressful situations. The university's job is not to shut down every time someone wants to get into a political argument. The job of the university is to say, okay, if you want to speak up, there are places and times to do that. But this is still a university where we have things to accomplish. And so if those two things come into conflict, you're going to have to choose. We're not going to do both of those at the same time. We're not going to accommodate your activism, even if they're validated, even if they're warranted, that you have a sincere call for some sort of justice. Okay, there are places and times you can do that. That is not here. Or at least if you're going to do that, you're going to do it in a way that does not disrupt what all the rest of us are trying to do. And they're not going along with that. In the beginning of World War II, if you remember, in England, there was a sign that was put out that said, "Keep calm and carry on." That has sort of become hipsterized and memeified and, become a consumerist product. But the sentiment is a good one, that when things are difficult around you, your attitude should be, and until it's a truly desperate situation where you actually need to do something, it should be, let's keep calm. Let's stay on track. Let's stay focused, complete the task at hand. Let's not get distracted. And yet this is what's happening at universities. Everything is now a distraction. Everything is a crisis. And this latest one with the war in Gaza is, it's a serious one, but it doesn't mean it has to stop people from functioning at a university. It doesn't mean classes need to shut down because a bunch of kids want to go, hold signs and disturb everybody. So I wish we'd have a keep calm and carry on attitude. So this physics professor decided to make the final exam optional and told students that no matter how they performed on the exam, if they chose to take it, it would not hurt their grade. She and the course's lab instructors gave students information to help them figure out what grade they'd receive without the final. Hilarious, because here's a physics class or astronomy class, and we're now at a place where the students can't do the very basic math of figuring out what their grade already is. Considering everything's computerized anyway, you don't need the teacher to be doing this for you. How bad at math are you? Why are you taking a physics and astronomy class if you can't even figure out what your own point total is in the class? Just, that made me laugh. As the exam date approached, she wasn't sure what to expect. Really? You weren't sure what to expect? Well, anyone who knows anything about human behavior would know that if you offer students, if you say, we're going to have a test, but you don't have to take it, and even if you do, it won't count against you. How many people do you think are going to take that test? Almost nobody. Right? Anyone who just thinks about it for 5 seconds will go, well, why would anyone take that test? Makes no sense. As long as you have a reasonably high grade in the class already, then, if you're out of desperation because you have a D and you're like, I actually need this to pull my grade up. Okay, maybe, but why would anyone else do it? Here's what happened. 8 out of 62 students showed up for the final, including a student who already had an A. She was a little surprised, really surprised. Again, do you not know anything about how teenagers work? It's not surprising at all. She was a little surprised not to see more of them, but she wasn't disappointed because she'd rather see them out being activists than actually in a classroom learning. That's the real problem. Also, the idea of it doesn't matter how you perform on the exam, it won't hurt your grade. Again, isn't our job as educators to sort of prepare students for the real world? How often in reality, in your job or in any real situation, do you do things that have absolutely no consequences? Like, you either do things and they work out and maybe you get rewarded or whatever it is becomes successful and that's great, or you don't do it right and there's a consequence for it. You lose money, maybe, your boss yells at you, whatever it is, there's always a consequence. And yet here we have educators who are supposed to be training young adults, and we tell them, it doesn't matter how you do on this test. It doesn't even matter that you take the test, but even if you do, it won't hurt you. Yeah, because everything in life will always work out to be positive for you. That's the lesson we're teaching students. It's horrible. But she's not the only one. This other lady, an English professor at Columbia, I'll go ahead and say that because that one's been in the news the most lately, felt a responsibility to take some pressure off students and acknowledge the stress they were already experiencing in light of the protests over the war in Gaza and the arrests and police presence on campus in response to them. So again, this isn't the teacher's job. The teacher's job is not to reduce stress. In fact, what the teacher's job should be is to actually, in a way, you want to crank up the stress. That's what you actually want to do within the classroom setting, not like personally. You're not trying to actively harm their mental health or something like that. But in the class environment, you actually want to stress test them as much as you can so that they're ready for the next class next year, or if they're getting close to being done, they're going to be ready for the working world, which, as we know from all the data, all the employers are saying our young people today are not prepared for the workforce. This is why. Because at every chance we get, we professors go, well, I'm trying to reduce the stress. I know you kids are really under a lot of pressure right now. And, I want to do what I can to make it easier for you. It's the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. Again, we know this. Imagine if in the military, the mindset of our drill sergeants and our leaders of our military were like, yeah, you know what, you recruits and you new guys at boot camp, we know this is tough, so we're gonna back off a bit, and we want to make sure everyone's comfortable, and we want you to have a good experience here. No, their job is to work you as hard as you possibly can. They actually want you to quit. That's really one of their goals. We're going to push you so hard that you actually want to leave because we need the best here. We're doing serious work. Our lives are on the line. You need to be ready for it. Now, for the rest of us, our lives aren't always on the line, but at your future job, it's going to get stressful. You need to be prepared to handle the stress. Again, not just military, but athletics. This is what I wrote that article about a week or two ago. This is what every coach does. Anyone who's played sports at a high level. I was lucky enough to play on one of the best basketball teams in the country. And that was our whole mantra on our team was our practices are going to be so hard and so grueling that playing the game is going to feel easy. And that's exactly how it was. We would play games. We would win national championships. We'd have long winning streaks. And we'd have games where after the game in the locker room, we'd go, wow, that was fun. It was easy. We had no problems. Practice on Tuesday was way harder than that. Yeah, that's what you want. You want to stress test the students so that they constantly get tougher and tougher and tougher so that by the time they're seniors and they're ready to go apply for jobs, they are rock stars. They are ready to accomplish anything. They're tough as nails, and there's nothing that a boss is going to throw at them that they say, I don't know what to do about that. I can't help. They'll say, I'll do whatever you want. Give it to me. I can take it. Yeah, I'll stay late. Yeah, I'll do extra work. I don't care. I can handle it. Well, that's how you become successful. So when the students, 8 of the students showed up here, including a student who already had an A. Yeah, I bet the other 7 were B students. That's probably who showed up. Because anyone who was already passing was probably like, wow, whatever. I'm already getting a passing grade. So I don't need to take the test. And that's what happens. I referenced this last time. That's the gap. This is what creates gaps among in the outcomes is you think, oh, well, I want to make it better for everyone. And so that we're all a little more equal. And so everyone feels successful. Yeah, you think that's what's happening. And it's the exact opposite because the smart students or the hardworking students are going to be at the top anyway. And the ones who follow your plan here of making everything easier, yeah, they just slide by and coast at the bottom. So instead of closing the gap like you think, well, I'll neutralize kind of the playing field and I'll make everyone successful. Nope. The successful students are going to stay being successful and the other students are just going to stay here. Why wouldn't they? You already gave them a decent grade. Why try any harder? Well, the students who have the internal motivation, they're going to try hard all the time anyway. And yeah, they become the superstars. So these are the professors who are contributing to the larger problem of why universities are collapsing. And let me tell you about this second lady. All right. So she's at Columbia again, and she's trying to take the pressure off of students. When she saw New York Police Department officers pull up to campus with an armored tactical vehicle on the evening of April 30th, she thought, well, the semester is over. And again, why? It doesn't have to be over. Do your job. Tell students your job is to go to class. Go to class. Your job is to study hard. Study hard. Your job is to be competent. We're going to be competent. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can go somewhere else or you can become a full-time protester. I don't care. But here's what we do in this school and in this classroom. So, the semester's over, I guess. No. Carry on. Keep calm. Carry on. The police were on their way to clear Hamilton Hall, which had been taken over by protesters following an earlier police crackdown on a pro-Palestinian encampment. The first police response had resulted in 100 arrests and sparked an escalation of protest at Columbia and beyond. For all the attention that's been fixed on Columbia this spring, this teacher said, many observers don't realize how difficult the response to the demonstrations has made daily life. One of their campuses had been locked down, complicating students' access to dining halls and libraries. Yeah, that's called committing a crime. Like these professors who are so surprised that police showed up. When people are being violent, when people are obstructing everyone else's daily life, like not letting them get to class, like not letting them get to the dining hall where they can get their meals, blocking roads, that's not protesting. That's called committing a crime. And so don't be surprised when the police show up and start taking people away. It's amazing that you're shocked at that. So again, if you want to be a protester, some activist, that's fine. You can go do that, but you can't do both. You can't say, I want to be a protester and not go to class, but also go, I want to get a high grade in my class. No, those are two separate things. You can't be in two places at once. Pick one. And if you choose this one, fine. Scream and hold signs all you want. But over here, we're still doing school. Unless there's some sort of tragedy that none of us could control, and then we'll adjust to it. This is totally within your control, and if this is what you'd rather do, please go do that. Just do it somewhere else. You don't need to be on our college campus to do that. We're here to go to school and learn and become competent, skilled adults who are ready to go out into the world and earn a living and take care of our family and do interesting things. The university has acknowledged the pressure that this puts on students academically. Columbia announced that students could select one of any of the courses they are taking to receive a Pass, D, Fail instead of a letter grade under the normal system. I'm not sure what Pass, D, Fail is. I don't know how the word fail goes together. Passing and D go together. Pass and fail, you can tell how those are opposites. I don't know what Pass, D, Fail means. It sounds like you're just giving kids a break. That's what happens. Where if a kid gets a low grade, you can just designate that one like, oh, that was my freebie class. Just give me a passing grade. And I guess it won't count against your GPA, something like that. So the school is already giving you a break, all right, which it doesn't need to do. I never went to a school like this, so I don't know why they need to. Usually they're given that option for only one elective course. So it sounds like they're now not only allowing it for an elective, but maybe even in your major, which should never happen because those are the most important classes. This was later revised up to 2 courses. Okay, so we're already reducing the standards. We already reduce it by allowing you to not have a grade count on your transcript. We already allowed it to not just be an elective, but also a major class. And it wasn't just 1, now it's up to 2. So the standards are already crumbling. The other undergraduate schools have made similar adjustments. The university also moved exams scheduled for the first day of finals, May 3rd to May 10th. So now we've also given you an extra week to study if you need. All right, look at all the accommodations we've given you. But this English professor thought these moves didn't go far enough. After the first Pass D Fail change was announced, she wrote to several deans advocating that students should have that option for all of their courses. Strategizing about where to use the option just adds another layer of stress, she thought, and she never heard back. So here's the irony. Now she wants it for all their classes. So if kids taking 6 courses, you can just have all of them count as pass and they don't harm your GPA. All right. Yeah, why have any grades, I guess? The irony of all this is that it would actually be less stress if you just kept a strict standard for all students at all times, because then at least everyone would know what the standard is. You may not like it. You might think it's too strict or too hard, but at least everyone would know. That's what teachers and schools should always be doing, is take the variables off the table. Okay? Stop having all these exceptions and different options and different rules for different types of situations. No, you say, here's how it is. And if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. But this is what we do here. And again, her offering these options for students has actually made it way more confusing and more stressful. Uncertainty is more stressful than obstacles. So you're just creating more uncertainty about how you deal with the situation. Just tell them how to deal with it. It's very easy. So she pondered how to give the 37 students in her course, literature course, more relief. She decided to make the final project or exam, they could choose either, optional, and told students that completing it could only improve their grades. So again, there's no consequences. You're a bad student, doesn't matter. You haven't tried hard all semester, doesn't matter. She also gave them more time to complete the exam. So let's add it up. She made the final optional. It could only be positive. She also gave them an extension on it. And she would also offer it online, which, as every student in America knows, everyone cheats. Trust me. Their students are very open about it. I've had conversations with students for years, and they're like, yeah, online classes are just cheating. That's all it is. So yeah, this is what we've done. But it gets worse. But she didn't hear back from the deans, and so she felt her own adjustment still didn't go far enough. Think of all the things she's done to accommodate her students through this difficult turmoil. And she goes, that's still not enough. Students usually get A's and B's in her course. All right, so there's a sign you're just not a good teacher, okay? You need to have a reasonable distribution of grades in your class. If everyone gets an A or a B in your class, that means the class is too easy. At the end of the semester, you need to reevaluate your course and crank up the intensity a little bit so that next semester you get a more even distribution. You need to be able to differentiate your top students from your worst students more clearly and the people who are in the middle. If everyone gets an A and a B, that means your class, it's not a real class. Okay. So teachers out there, if everyone's acing your class, it's not because everyone's a genius. It's because you've set up a bad class. She didn't want them to use the pass, D, fail option when it might help them more in a different course. She wanted everyone to get through the semester as successfully as possible in all of their courses. So anyone, again, with a brain would think, well, if the goal here of education is just to have everyone be successful and all of this stuff like papers and exams just get in the way, and after all, especially in these difficult times where there's so much turmoil, it's harder than ever. Why don't we just give everyone A's? Why don't we just have students show up on the first day of school in August, and they hand the registrar a $200,000 check, and the registrar goes behind the desk and pulls out a diploma, writes their name on it, and hands it to him and goes, ta-da, congratulations, you graduated our university. You're out in the world now. Everyone gets what they want. The school gets paid. The kid gets their diploma. They get high grades, supposedly. So why jump through all these hoops for 4 years? Why are we even bothering with this teaching classroom environment? If this is what you want, why don't we just do that? None of this makes any sense. But that's crazy. No one would ever think, well, we should just give kids A's, right? So she decided to give everyone an A. Those who already had an A would be bumped to an A+. Exactly. So none of what she did that semester, all of the effort she put into teaching her class about multicultural literature, none of it actually mattered. So when she says, I'm really passionate about my field and this is really important for students to learn. No, it's not. You just handed a bunch of people A's for not earning anything in that class. And if you had earned it, you got bumped to an A+. So now any good student who actually did the work all semester, who got good grades on tests, who wrote papers, did all the readings, contributed to class discussions, their grade now means nothing. Because after all, you gave a high grade to everybody else. Why in the world did that student put all that effort in? You just insulted every single hardworking student in that classroom. And that's a shame because the students who do care, they deserve to be rewarded for that. And you just insulted all of them. This is the kind of decision that's bound to be mocked by those who think students are soft and professors overly deferential. Yep, I'm the one doing the mocking. That's exactly right. So it's worth noting that this professor isn't thrilled where she landed. Yeah, she is. Her goal wasn't education. Her goal wasn't to teach content. It wasn't to bring about excellence. Her goal was to feel good about herself and supposedly be helpful to students, even though she actually just harmed them. That's what she did, because she taught them a valuable lesson that as long as there's something going on outside in the courtyard and people are yelling and screaming, I guess I don't have to study anymore. I'm going to get my A and I'm going to graduate with a high GPA. That's what you taught them. You only did this to feel good about yourself. So when you say, I'm not thrilled about this, sure you are. This is what you wanted. And so that's what you did. There you go. She said she's mourning a lot of things right now, including the way her course typically ends with students synthesizing all they've learned. And while there are professors who don't put much stock in grades, she's not one of them. She's long identified with the iconic academic overachiever Lisa Simpson. That's just not true at all. Lisa Simpson, if you know anything about The Simpsons, would never allow this, because she would be the A student who worked hard all semester. And if she found out that all the other kids in the class, if Bart also got the same grade as her, she'd be furious. So she can't call herself a Lisa Simpson and then completely undermine her own position on the value of grades and learning things in a classroom. She doesn't think she'd have given everyone an A if the university had allowed students to be able to receive a pass, D, fail for all their courses. Oh, so blame everyone else. It was your class and you made the decision on putting that policy into place, but instead you're going to pass it off and say, well, the school, I had to do it. The school didn't offer me another alternative. No, the other alternative could have been keep calm, carry on. We're going to have a normal semester. We're going to have normal grades. Everyone's going to work hard and you're going to earn your credit for this class. That's what you could have done. not blame other people and come up with insane grading scenarios for your students. The president and trustees who decided how to respond to the demonstrations, she noted, aren't in the classroom. Exactly. Yeah, administrators don't know anything, so you shouldn't be listening to them anyway. You're the teacher. You're the expert in your content. You take charge of your room and say, here's how we do things here. Whatever is driving the choices they've made, it doesn't seem to be learning. Yeah, no kidding. Professors need to be more responsible. All right, so ultimately the article concludes with, trying to come up with solutions that reflect one's values, which again, this is very easy. The author of the article says this: stress can divert cognitive resources, making it harder to think clearly. That's true for instructors who should give themselves some grace, says this lady who's an administrator at Missouri, who writes about teaching. Instructors should extend that grace to their students. Students get already so much grace, it's crazy. Look at all the grace that was already given, and yet it wasn't enough. So why do it? All you're doing is teaching people to not try hard. That's what you're doing. It's insane. Even when it's clear that a crisis is affecting students, it doesn't have to affect them. They chose to let it affect them. It won't affect them all in the same way, and professors are unlikely to have enough information to predict students' individual experiences. Yeah, that's why you need consistent standards. That's the whole point. You got hundreds of students in your classes, thousands of students across a university. Yeah, you can't possibly know how to deal with each student individually. That's why you have a standard where you go, you know what? Generally, I think this is what's best for everyone. So here's what we're going to do. And after all, I'm the expert in this field in my classroom, so I've decided this is what's appropriate. Yeah, that's what a teacher's job is. Be a teacher. This lady says if she were teaching during such a moment, she might tell her students, I would invite you to propose to me how you think you can demonstrate your learning in this class so we can both feel legitimate that we've assessed your knowledge and understanding while accounting for the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Yeah, that sounds nice, except how are you going to do that with 400 students? If you teach a couple big classes, where you can meet with every single student and go, you tell me how you'd like to be evaluated. That's crazy. Every student's going to have different answers. And again, the top students are going to say different things than the lower students. So what, are you going to grade them differently? Are you going to make it easier on the top students? That's not helpful to them. The top students not only want the grades, the best students actually want the challenge because they're there to learn. They actually find the competition of it, kind of useful. So you can't do this. That's why you as the expert in the field have to come in with the standard. There's never a perfect response to a disruption, like the recent protests and the ensuing police response. This other lady who looks like, she's an administrator, but also a teacher. Instructors work in different institutional contexts and have varying degrees of job security. What they can all aim for is an imperfect plan that reflects their values and as an educator and as a human. That's true. Some people might feel nervous about having certain standards because they think, well, I'm not a full professor, I'm not tenured, maybe I'm just an adjunct, and so if I do something that my administrators don't like, maybe I'll get fired. And that's possible. That's where the values come in. If you don't have values, then you're just going to do whatever you can to slide by, and that's your choice. Years and years ago, when I was a new college instructor, I'd been teaching a couple years, and I was just an adjunct, and so I was getting evaluated and advised, which happens for adjuncts. And the lady who was my sort of boss, mentor person, she was talking to me, and she was like, you're getting kind of a reputation of being pretty strict and pretty, the grades in your classes are pretty low. And I said, yeah, so that's where the students are performing. That's not me being unfair or overly mean or anything. It's that they don't know what they're doing and they're not working hard enough. So this is the standard. And she said, you just might want to be careful of that. If things get too low, there's a chance that the bosses might not ask you back. And so I had to make a decision at that moment. I had to think, okay, do I do what I think is right? After all, I'm the expert in this classroom and in this field, and I've been teaching for quite a while now, even though I was just starting at the college level. I had taught for years before that. I know how to run a classroom. I know how to evaluate students. I know how to create assessments. I know all that. And I had to think, well, am I going to risk my paycheck? As small as it is, I kind of need the money. So should I just go along and make my classes easier? Or should I stick to my values and do what I think is right? Well, that's what I did. And I never got fired. Thankfully, I never got, my contract not renewed or something like that. So my values ended up working. And I actually made things even tougher the older I got, because I thought, nope, we need to be better at this. So my values, like she said, my values did inform what I think is right. The question is, what are these teachers' values? Because if their values are, well, let's just give everyone grace and let's just make accommodations for everyone. And if you don't feel like studying, then I'll just give you a high grade. I understand. If that's your value, then what are we even doing? What's the point of all of this? Why are we wasting everyone's time jumping through the hoops and going through the motions of pretending that this is education? Those aren't my values. And so that's what I stuck to throughout my whole career. Professors often feel a sense of urgency about a broader crisis, she said. It's good for them to remember what is and is not in their power. Well, if it's your classroom, you have a lot of power. At a certain point, the administration or the university can do certain things that they didn't ask you about. But as long as school is still operating and your class is still in session, you're still in charge. Teachers probably can't set institutional policies on finals or grades, but they can act in the space of their own courses. Yeah, that's true. You just got to decide how you're going to act. Eventually, the article ends with teachers need to take some time to reflect and think about this in the long term, designing courses with more breathing room built in so that adapting is easier when the next crisis strikes. And that's the real thing. There's always going to be another crisis. Either a real one, like I said, maybe a tornado rips through your town and you don't have a school anymore. That's a crisis. Maybe it's something in your family. Your father passes away suddenly. Yeah, you have a crisis to deal with. And maybe you need to go deal with that because that's probably more important right now. There's always a crisis. But does that mean we need to completely upend our whole educational system every time students think, I'm too stressed right now? There's so much going on in the world. There's people picketing out in the streets. And do we need to do that? I say no. Students will always find a way to generate, even if there isn't a real crisis, students will always find a way to generate one. And so, like I said, the best option is, nope, here's what we do at this school. We're focused on the mission at hand. And if you want to be a part of that, great. If you don't, that's fine. There are other schools, or don't go to school, whatever. You decide what you want to do. But when we're here, here's what we're doing. We're the adults. We're going to set the standards. You either choose to follow them or don't. But this is what we're doing. It's as easy as that. It's all you have to do. If you want to be at school with a reputation that is respected in the community, that's what you do. It's not hard. But this is what's happening with universities across the board, and why the trust level in universities is declining precipitously. It's because people are starting to figure out, especially since COVID, as the article referenced, when things really got switched up in 2020 at the end of that school year, everyone started realizing, oh, none of this matters. I just went the whole year of school, and suddenly in March, I didn't have to go anymore, and they gave me all passing grades, or maybe A's. So I guess none of what they were telling me before actually mattered. I didn't have to go to class. I didn't have to do my homework or study for my exams. I didn't have to be competent in those skilled areas because there was a crisis and they just gave me an A anyway. And ever since then, grade inflation has been going on a while. So this isn't a brand new thing just from 2020, but 2020 pulled the curtain back on all of this. And everyone realized, oh, none of this matters. These people who run these universities, they don't care about any of this. They say they believe in learning. They say they believe in excellence and high standards. They don't. Because when it comes down to it and there's a crisis, they'll just make it easy for everyone and pass us through and make us feel good and give us our diplomas and send us on our way. So what's the point of even going through all of this? Yeah, that's a very rational response. So universities and professors individually, if you want to stop the bleeding here, if you want to give, you want to earn your reputation back, again, it's not about the DEI stuff. It's not about the larger social justice issues. It's about standards in individual classrooms and at the university as a whole, where we say we are choosing to be excellent no matter what. And we are going to turn out students when they graduate here, they're going to be great and ready to tackle the challenges of life. Right now, we don't have that. And the universities are complicit. And the students are acting very rationally. It's not really their fault. Yeah, they're lazy, but you've made them that way. Stop doing that. Turn the ship around. Let's get back to being excellent institutions and hold the standards. And trust me, people will come back because people always want learning. People always want training. Right now, they're just discovering you're not the ones to provide it. Oh, and by the way, you're way too expensive. So yeah, this is what's happening. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. It kind of piggybacked on what I had talked about a couple weeks ago about the real problem at universities is actually this. It's low standards. It's easy accommodations. It's letting everyone slide through. It's not challenging anyone. It's not, not having students face any sort of stress. Make it easy, pass them through, give them their A's, and everyone's happy. Hand me your check, please. That's what schools are doing, and people are onto the game, and they're going to stop going to those schools. So be a different type of school, and you'll probably be okay. All right, that's it for today. Let me know what you think. If this is something that is interesting you, it seemed like it was from the last one, and so I can keep hammering on this because there are a few more things about the education system, especially at the university level, that I can dive more deeply into if you want to hear it. So please let me know. Thanks as always for listening. I appreciate your reading, and I'll talk to you next time.